Okay, good evening, everyone. Again, you're with me. And of course, today being Thursday, that means it is Europa League and Conference League night. Semi-final night, to be exact, as we will be bringing you the second leg of the 2026 Europa League semi-final between Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest, live from Villa Park in Birmingham, in England, in the UK. Just another reminder that after last week's first leg, Nottingham Forest hold a slender 1-0 lead. Now, I was actually thinking that the lead would have been a little bit more given how well Forest had played against Sunderland, but surprisingly, they weren't really able to create very much. It was really only a penalty that proved to be the difference. Luca Digne with a ridiculous attempt. I'm not too sure what he was thinking, raising his hands like that in the penalty area when the ball hadn't crossed the line completely, and it was really stupid in every way. Whenever in doubt, if you don't really need to do it, do not raise your hands in the penalty area. Defending 101. Chris Wood, of course, scoring that penalty from the first leg, and Forest coming away with the win. And since then, of course, both teams played over the weekend, with Aston Villa playing on Sunday. An absolutely disgraceful performance against Spurs. The scoreline actually flattered Villa. It was really only an Emi Buendia breathlessly late equaliser that sort of added gloss to the scoreline. But apart from that, Villa were just second best all the way through. They fielded an almost entirely second-string 11, apart from Martinez, Rodgers, Cash, and Tielemans. And safe to say that the team just didn't really put in the effort. But Emery has been defended in many ways for that by saying, with top five pretty much guaranteed, Villa only need to beat Burnley this weekend. There was no point in simply trying to win that game just to go above Liverpool in the league, with Liverpool having lost to Manchester United at Old Trafford. But, you cannot ever underestimate the importance of getting a win prior to that and building some momentum. And that's exactly what Nottingham Forest did when they went to Stamford Bridge. And ironically, they made far more changes to their starting lineup and went on to thrash Chelsea 3-1. It was only João Pedro with his own breathlessly late consolation goal that, really added some slight respectability to the scoreline. But apart from that, Chelsea were literally, just thrashed all ways to Sunday. And is this the time of the season when Villa start to choke a little bit before somehow getting over the line? I'm not too sure. But of course, there is a consequence of that, and we will come to that. Now, just a reminder that there will be no away goals in this stage of the competition. So in prior seasons, if Forest were to have scored an away goal, they would have held a slight advantage. But sadly, that isn't the case. So Villa only need to beat Forest 2-1 or 3-2. That is by one goal in normal time to force extra time. And if it is level on aggregate after extra time, the match will go to penalties. And another reminder, we are also going to provide you updates from the other semi-finals of the Europa League and the Conference League, including another Premiership side in Crystal Palace, who hold a 3-1 lead from their first leg against Shakhtar Donetsk, which was played in Krakow in Poland. And of course, I will be hoping to possibly try to get back between the other games if possible. I want to see if there's any, and I can confirm that my TV will also have coverage of Crystal Palace and Donetsk, and also Braga against Freiburg in the other Europa semi-final. And we've already got some comments over here. Nems Talks, you were there for the last stream, and you're here again. Big up to you. Thank you very much indeed for coming back in. And now there will be some consequences, of course, from the Chelsea game, which saw plenty of stoppages. We had a young teenager being sent to hospital. I believe Sam Derry is his name, suffered a dreadful head injury. We all hope that he makes a massive recovery, and certainly with Hanno being a Chelsea fan, I do believe that he will be in his thoughts. And we will talk about the Aston Villa starting 11. There is one notable change with Amadou Onana not being past fit in time for the game. So Victor Lindelof, the former Manchester United centre-back, who was a part of two Europa League final squads, including the 2021 squad against Unai Emery's Villarreal, will come into the team and potentially play in the defensive midfield pivot alongside Yuri Tielemans. Now, he has played, of course, in that position before on one or two occasions and not done too badly. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people can agree with me that if he isn't at right back, it will be only a blessing. That's really the only change from the 11 that played at the City ground. And Onana being unfit really is a spanner in the works, but maybe Lindelof can do a job, I would say. There is also talk from BBC Sport that it could actually morph into a 3-5-2 with with Konsa, Lindelof, and Pau Torres in the back three, Cash and Digne as wing backs, and then Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers up front as a front two. Maybe Rogers might play behind Watkins in a way. That would, of course, mean that Emi Buendia would be in the centre of the midfield. And I will say this right now. The decision not to include Ross Barkley in the Europa League squad, former Chelsea midfielder Ross Barkley, that is an absolutely dreadful decision. Just like not including Daniel Marlin in the Champions League squad last year. We'll see if Villa go on to pay for that. And, of course, Lindelof's promotion from the subs bench to the first team means that there are only 11 subs on the bench for Aston Villa, and those are the same 11 subs that were there in the away leg at Nottingham Forest, including James Wright and Marco Biza, the backup goalkeepers. Harvey Elliott and Tyrone Mings, of course, fill the English quotient, along with, of course, Abraham and Sancho. But surely there should have been room for Barkley in that midfield, which will look otherwise completely lightweight. Douglas Luiz, of course, also there. We'll see if he plays a role tonight against his former club where he played as early as this season. And now we'll come to the Forest starting 11, and the big consequence is that Morgan Gibbs-White also sustained a dreadful injury after a collision with the Chelsea goalkeeper Robert Sanchez. And you could see the Instagram posts afterwards showing an ugly cut to his forehead, which needed stitches or staples, whatever they looked like. He's not been past fit to play in the starting 11, but he will be on the bench. And so the Manchester City loanee, James McAtee, comes into his place. And it could very well be the same 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 that started against Villa in the home leg, I should say. But another notable change sees Jair Cunha come in place of Ola Aina, who sustained a pretty bad injury that day and doesn't even make the bench. So just to confirm the lineup for you right now. Other than that, I suppose it's as you were. Dominguez and Anderson will be expected to occupy the centre of the midfield. Hutchinson, of course, who won that penalty in the home leg, will be on the right, McAtee on the left. And it'll be expected that Igor Jesus will probably play behind the New Zealand international Chris Wood, who captains the side today in the absence of Morgan Gibbs-White, and with club captain Ryan Yates once again on the bench. Those are really the only changes, but there are plenty of changes on the bench. Quite a few of the younger lads who were there in the home leg are not there for the away leg. We see Murillo and Ibrahim Sangare come back onto the bench. Gibbs-White is, of course, on the bench, along with Dan and Doye. The Italian, Luca, along with Ryan Yates and Matt Sells, the normal first-choice goalkeeper, and Bakwa, another midfielder, followed by 4 youth players this time around instead of the 5 that were there. And I'll just confirm the subs once again. So this is going to be really interesting to see how Forest play. It could very well be that their confidence is now quite high after 2 very heavy wins against Sunderland and Chelsea, respectively, and they're going to look to try to be aggressive. But Villa do have a knack, of course, of doing very well in Europe, especially at home. This is the, they've been, the last time they suffered a European defeat at home was, of course, the Champions League, the Conference League semi-final first leg, I should say. I believe they lost that leg 2-4 with Robin Olsen starting in goal instead of Emi Martinez, who was suspended after the quarterfinal against Lille. And that was the end of the season where they just ran out of steam, but somehow started over the line to get top 4 at the expense of Spurs, who went on to win the Europa League the following season. And this season, of course, they are mired in a relegation battle. So it's hard not to look really beyond Nottingham Forest really putting in a tough game, and we should see the teams coming out. Yep, Matt Sells shaking hands with Emi Martinez, a goalkeepers union thing there. And John McGinn, of course, past fit for the game, ready to lead the team out. And you can see the fireworks all the way there at Villa Park. A wonderful sight to see early in the evening. And obviously, Villa is hopeful. Villa is expectant. And they know that with the second leg being played at home, it does give them an advantage. And they really don't have as big a deficit to try and overcome as they did in the Conference League against Olympiacos. Olympiacos, of course, who went on to win that tournament under the stewardship of Jose Luis Mendilibar, who also won a Europa League with Sevilla. But that's just one compared to Unai Emery's 3 in succession with that club. Once again, a reminder, we are bringing you the live coverage of the second leg of the Europa League semi-final between Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest, live from Villa Park in Birmingham. And another confirmation, Nottingham Forest lead, Aston Villa 1-0 from the first leg. So Villa need to win this game by 2 to go through. Winning it by 1 in normal time will send it to extra time. And if it stays that way after extra time, we will go to penalties. But Forest only need to draw to go through to their first European final since the heady days of the early 80s when they reached, 79 and 80, when they reached 2 consecutive European Cup finals under the stewardship of the late, great Brian Clough. And already we've got some more comments coming in. A PSG cooking is loading. Well, we're going to sort of cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm happy that Arsenal reached the final, but even I'm not going to pretend that it's going to be easy against PSG, or even that we have much of a chance of winning against a PSG team that looked really, really strong, both in attack and in defence, as they showed yesterday at the Allianz Arena. Chelsea fan, big up, Manny, my friend. Big up to you, Martin. Thanks for joining in, mate. Another reminder to all of you, I could start this channel, a comment, and I will. Keep hitting the like button and please sub to the channel if you can. Thank you very much indeed. And some more cordialities. And of course, Dembele clearing Harry Kane. Dembele is a quality player. Of course, a very big part of the France team that won the World Cup in 2018, but lost the final in 2022 to Emi Martinez's Aston Argentina. Yeah. I'm really going to have to, start speaking a lot more slowly. I'm sick and tired of, having words being replaced with this. And I'm not a big fan of the Europa League anthem, but I already see the 2 teams standing there. Should be some good matches, definitely. And once again, another reminder of what we are watching tonight. And I should be... I'll just prepare the banner for you right now. And we see the players shaking hands. And we will confirm the team lineups. And I can, in fact, confirm that it is a 3-5-2. So it does seem to be the case that it'll be Lindelof, Konsa, and Pau in the back with Cash and Digne on the wings. And McGinn, Gwendy, and Tielemans in the centre of that midfield. Fair to say that Emery seems to be going for broke. I'm not too sure he necessarily trusts Lindelof to play that defensive midfield role. So he's probably going to try to pack the midfield and then see if they can't provide service to Watkins and Rodgers up front. And this wouldn't be the first time that Emery has tried playing 3 at the back. Some mutual respect there between the 2 coaches. One a Spaniard, one a Portuguese. And the referee for tonight's game is, of course, Glenn Nyberg from Sweden, with Mahmoud Beghi and Andres Söderqvist as the assistants. Brissot from France and Delahoud, also from France, will be on VAR duty tonight. And so there's no John McGinn, but there is Chris Wood, who will be coming up to meet... my bad. There is no Morgan Gibbs-White, but there will be a Chris Wood to come up against John McGinn. A Scotland-New Zealand encounter, if you will. And confirmation of the Forest FC lineup, it is a 4-4-1-1. Cunha at right back instead of Aina, McAtee on the left instead of Gibbs-White, Jesus just behind Wood up front, and apart from that, it is as you were from the first leg. So this isn't going to be a 4-2-3-1 with Lindelof in the double pivot. It's a 3-5-2 with Lindelof, Konsa, and Pau Torres in the middle. And it looks as though Forest have won the toss, and I think they're choosing the end from where to play. And again, starting 11, the expected 4-4-1-1, and we will see how things pass around. I can't look beyond either Spain or France to win the World Cup, but the problem with France is that there might be a lot of, big personalities and plenty of infighting. Just taking a look at Forest, they're going to be, I'm not too sure what Emi Martinez is doing there in that puddle. I mean, he probably needs to, move away. Maybe he's got telling them that you've got no business having your huddle in our half of the pitch. Well, like I said, I can't look beyond Spain, but don't discount Argentina either. They're probably 4 years older than the team that won. Arsenal versus Villa for the UEFA Super Cup in August. That could be the dream, Jose. We'll see what happens. Big up to you, by the way. Hopefully, Palace should take care of business today, and that will probably be the case. And can confirm now that it is Aston Villa who will be starting proceedings, kicking off from right to left, going towards the Holt end. And it looks as though it's Watkins with a nice back heel to Tielemans, hoping to find Cash on the right, and he does. And already we see McGinn trying to make a nuisance of himself on the right, but that should be a goal kick. So 10 seconds in, and we already see Aston Villa starting to try and make an impression on the game. But this 3-5-2 formation, if it is what comes to pass, will probably be a big test for the players in question. And I think it could very well be that Emery's, just trying to go for broke. I'm not too sure how that'll work. A pass from Ortega out, and that will be Morato receiving the pass from Williams and sending it out. But nice header there from Lindelof, and a back heel from Rodgers finds Watkins in the penalty area, but he's forced out. And not the best pass back to McGinn, and McGinn concedes the foul on Williams, and that will be a Nottingham Forest free kick. Thanks for all your comments so far. Jose going for a 2-0 Villa win. We'll see what happens. That will, of course, require Emi Martinez to keep a clean sheet, and I have no doubt that he is a magnificent keeper, better than David Raya, in my opinion. Yes, I'm going there once again. But defensively, he can be let down at times. Stefan Ortega, the former Manchester City goalkeeper who signed for Forest in January. He saved his side. He's seen his side save themselves from relegation. And as a reward for his professionalism, he could very well see Nottingham Forest playing in the European final. But Omari Hutchinson there being denied by some sharp defending. And the worst part about this 3-5-2 formation is that it does lead to things being a little bit, stuffy and claustrophobic at the back. And so Cash now having to try and start an attack. Lindelof hoping to, well, he does clear up the damage by winning a throw in there. Victor Lindelof with all his experience. If he does manage to win today by 2 and go to the final, it will be his third Europa League final after 2 with Manchester United. And last season, of course, was the second of his Europa League finals with the Red Devils, but he was on the bench and didn't see any action as United went down 1-0 to Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur. Lindelof once again being a big part of proceedings. And, there is actually some wisdom in him coming into the double pivot to play because he is quite, solid and composed on the ball. And Villa win a 3 kick there, so this could be very interesting. I think Nottingham Forest might end up ruining the fact that they weren't quite able to score too many more goals at the City ground. Igor Jesus had a brilliant chance in the first half, only for Martinez to pull off an absolute wonder save. And I'll get back to your comments about the World Cup during the break. 3 minutes gone. And I am also going to make sure that I go straight to the updates on the other scores. So just update everything. Everything will have started. And it is goalless right now after the first few minutes. The free kick into the penalty area. And that was not far away. That was not far away. Ezri Konsa there, very nearly getting in contact with that John McGinn free kick. Nicely swung in, left-footed, evading the defence. And it looks as though Jair Cunha there, who's come in for Ola Aina, has done some very good work in holding off Ezri Konsa, not allowing him to get on to that free kick. So that will be another goal kick. Elsewhere, it's goalless between Freiburg and Sporting Braga. The Portuguese side holding a 2-1 lead after the first leg at home themselves, after a pretty poor mistake from the Freiburg goalkeeper, Atabolu, who would save a penalty in the first half. Such is football. It can be cruel. And Buendia there, showing some very fancy footwork, and he does win a free kick. And clearly Nieberger is making it crystal clear that he's not going to stand for any kind of tomfoolery. In the Conference League, it's 0-0 between Palace and Shakhtar. Palace expected to go through after a powerful 3-1 first leg win away from home. Lindelof sending it forward, and I'm not too sure that Rodgers is going to get to that, and he doesn't. So that's yet another goal kick. Vitor Pereira cracking a smile. He knows that all the pressure will be on Aston Villa, despite what Unai Emery has said, and they're going to try and increase it. Maybe look to hit Villa on the counter, perhaps. And in the other Conference League semi-final, it is goalless between Strasbourg and Rayo Vallecano. But the Spanish side have a 1-0 lead from the first leg against the French side, coached by the former Bournemouth and Wolves manager, Gary O'Neill. And, yeah, once again, a lack of composure on the ball, but it's still, the stage is still not over, but Forest do. Well, not too sure they win a free kick, but they do have the advantage being played. Hutchinson now on the right, up against both Buendia and Digne, and Hutchinson's got some very electric pace, and he wins a throw. And it was Hutchinson, in fact, who gave Digne the run around and won the penalty at Digne's expense. Look out of course. Oh, and a huge update. There has, in fact, been a sending off in the Freiburg Sporting Braga game. Dorgeles on 6 minutes, who's been sent off. I'm not too sure what's happened there. So this actually does put the cat amongst the pigeons there. Dorgeles is actually playing on the left tonight, and we're going to find out why he got sent off. Obviously, the BBC Sport team will have updates on that, but we'll find out more later. Back to the action. Hutchinson with a fine left-footed cross, but nobody on the end of that, and that will just roll straight through to Emiliano Martinez. Rolls it out to Pau Torres, who passes it back to his Argentinian teammate. And that's straight to Ezri Konsa. Hoping to find cash forward, which he does. Lindelof. And, well, it is an Aston Villa throw. I think Lindelof will probably be trusted to, you know, hold his end more than anything else. Martinez receiving the back pass from Lindelof. Well, I think Jose's already got his eyes on that, and I did mention it 6 minutes in, and the reason why, the last man challenge. So thank you very much indeed, Jose, for giving us that update. You probably might be watching that match or looking at updates on BBC Sport. That is Milenkovic there with the throw. And Anderson there receiving the ball and passing it to McAtee. Williams has now gone out onto the left. It's Williams against Cash. And Cash forcing Williams back, but Anderson comes to the rescue. And pretty good play there from Cash to win a throw for Aston Villa. Already, it's quite clear that Aston Villa are looking to dominate. And of course, another reminder that it is Yuri Tielemans' 29th birthday today. So happy birthday, Yuri. Not too sure if I should wish you in Flemish or French. I think Flemish might be more of your language. Back with Ortega. Morato sending it forward. And Anderson there doing some fine work there. Finds McAtee. There is, of course, Hutchinson free on the right. And the ball finds him. Hoping to cut it in. Well, it's a fine left-footed shot from the ex-Chelsea and Arsenal youth player, but he can't get enough bend on that to really cause Martinez any problems. But Digne, once again, losing his player. Hutchinson with so much space on the right. I'll tell you what, that probably might not have been too far away from going in. I don't even think Martinez would have saved that, to be honest. Cash trying to send it forward. And you can see right now that Forest are looking to do what they did very well in the first leg. Just make sure that they press really hard. Great defending there from Pau Torres to block that ball from reaching Chris Wood. And a slip there, but thankfully for Villa, it's not costly. And Watkins there riding through the midfield. But not the best of passes. However, it does hit Milenkovic. Goes back, but Milenkovic is able to clear it. Jesus chesting it down, and it's with Omari Hutchinson. Elliot Anderson. Anderson, of course, guilty of what I now see was a shocking tackle on Oliver Watkins in the first leg, where he went in with his studs on Watkins' ankle. Should probably have been sent off, but the referee for that day, João Pinheiro, didn't really see much in it. Ten and a half minutes gone. It is Aston Villa 0, Nottingham Forest 0, and Forest are now just content to sit back and play because they know that the pressure is all on Villa to score and even things up on aggregate. Buendia finding Tielemans. It's with Buendia now. And Watkins on the left. Milenkovic sticking to him like glue, and Watkins shakes him off. And Watkins wins the corner. Some good work there from João Cunha, who came back to back everything up. And we're going to see how well they do from set pieces, of course. Very nice. Not too sure why you can't see them. Corner taken. And that is a fine save from Ortega. That was Pau Torres there with the header from that corner, from Tielemans' corner. Rising above Jesus to direct it over. I think that probably might have been going over the bar anyway, but Ortega wasn't going to take any chances that it would dip down just under him. So very good goalkeeping there from the German international. That should be John McGinn on the corner. Yes, left-footed, crouching down, almost like Johnny Wilkinson back in the day. And another corner, third in succession. Jesus heading that behind. Austin McPhee there, Aston Villa's set-piece coach, who also will be working with Bobby Martinez and the Portuguese national team at the World Cup. Very high in demand. Another corner there. Ortega punches it away. Headed back towards goal by Cash. Not a very strong shot there from Watkins. That is easily blocked away. But Cash receives the ball and passes it to Tielemans. Tielemans now. And of course, thanks a lot to Jose. I can tell you that there was actually a goal in the... actually, it's Jose who can tell you that there was a goal in the... Palace Donetsk game, Jeremy Pino, but that was disallowed. And that will be, of course, an Nottingham Forest goal kick. Aston Villa once again trying their best to make something happen with John McGinn very much at the heart of it. But Forest's central defenders standing tall. And this was, of course, the header from Pau Torres. And I'll tell you what, it actually might have dipped inside. So Ortega had to save that. And you're probably a little bit behind me there. I don't know if you're ahead, but, you know, Hutchinson had an attempt, but that was wide. So you're probably watching highlights of that. Hutchinson. He's got Jay Cunha, who's overlapped. And then it's back to Jay Cunha from Dominguez. Milenkovic now to Anderson, back to Dominguez. And I think that's Morato who finds Anderson. Back to Morato. Dominguez to Morato. Back to Dominguez again. Some short passing between the midfield and the defence, and that sort of suits Forest just fine. Anything to sort of, you know, just keep the composure there. But Rodgers also now looking quite sharp and not as lethargic as he was in the first leg. Villa know, in the words of Alfie Bowe, it's now or never. It gets to Buendia now. Buendia can shoot, but more or less a P roller straight through to Ortega. Yeah, never had the elevation or the speed to really trouble Ortega. It's quite funny that after leaving a Manchester City side that could still be on course for domestic treble, Stefan Ortega could very well be on course for European silverware. We'll find out. Hoping to play the offside trap, Wood in the penalty area, but Torres comes back, and some important defending there from the Spaniard, who has been known to be very clumsy in the Premiership at times, but certainly in Europe, his composed style of play is very important. A rather needless foul there from Elliot Anderson. The free kick taken far too quickly for Glenn Lieberg's liking, and that will be brought back. Already a quarter of an hour gone, more than a quarter of an hour gone. It's still 0-0, and it is 0-0 in the other games. Confirmation there was Pino, who had a brilliant run and strike, but VAR probably declaring that to be offside. And not too sure who got the booking there, but it's coming from the Aston Villa bench. And you can see Amadou Onana not even dressed up to be a sub. Still very much a part of the squad tonight, if only to, you know, act as a cheerleader and a motivator. Aston Villa definitely need to win this Europa League competition, get to the final at least, to avoid being called bottle jobs. Just like Arsenal usually are, but of course Arsenal are in pole position to win the league and have also reached the Champions League final. And a poor pass there, easily intercepted by Hutchinson. Torres there hoping to find Digne on the left and failing, really. But that was a pass over there which is never going to find anyone, and Torres can easily mop it up. And you think, of course, the way things are going, that this were a normal Premiership clash with both teams scrapping for points and not the European semi-final. Konsa. Back to Martinez. Forward to Konsa. On the side to Matthew Cash. It's interesting seeing the role that Lindelof is playing. He does have the ability to have a free role going into midfield, and some very fine play there. Sees what Rodgers go through, and that is a poor foul, and we are going to see yet another booking. And it's Morato there. A rather cynical attempt. Great back heel there from the captain with his wrong foot. sending Rodgers on his way. And that's literally what you'd call a body check there. I think Morato might have gotten the ball first, but the impact was just poor. Just ticked over 18 minutes at Villa Park. Tielemans with the free kick. Forest have defended really well. It will be interesting to see if they can find any kind of gaps in that defence and maybe have a shot on goal. And I'm not too sure anyone's going to get to that. Hoping to find Matthew Cash at the end of that free kick, but that ball was just too quick for him. Cash appreciating the efforts of his Belgian teammate. Wouldn't it be nice if Tielemans were to score on his birthday? And that's the Forest bench, of course, with many names on the bench, including Morgan Gibbs-White. You can see that rather ugly scar on his forehead. He is, of course, on the bench and could possibly come on, but concussion protocols would normally dictate that he wouldn't even be in the squad tonight. However, Vitor Pereira doesn't want to leave anything to chance, knowing just how important Morgan Gibbs-White is. And Cash sending it forward, relieving some pressure. And Watkins, some wonderful hold-up play there. Pass back to Buendia and some interchange between Buendia, Rodgers and Watkins. A foul there on Buendia, Dominguez the guilty party, and that will be a free kick. And that is goal-scoring territory. The only problem is going to have to get it on target. And the big question is, who takes this free kick? Is it Tielemans, the birthday boy? Dominguez there clipping Buendia's heel. And you can see the interplay in the build-up between Watkins and Buendia. Watkins winning the header, holding up play beautifully for Rodgers to come in. And then Buendia getting the ball. We know that Buendia can have a really good shot on him. There are actually quite a few good free kick takers in this Aston Villa side. As we've just ticked over 20 minutes, it is Aston Villa 0, Nottingham Forest 0. And I want to thank Jose for providing these updates, the lucky bugger who's watching everything there. Lucas Kubler taking advantage of the man disadvantage to fire Freiburg ahead at home and equal the tie 2-2 on aggregate. Looks as though it would be Buendia to take this, or could it be Digne? I know Morgan Rodgers has the ability to take a fine free kick. It's Buendia! And that hits the wall and goes over for a corner. Well, he's all of 5'7", probably needed to get a little bit more elevation on that. Milenkovic and I think that was Jay Cunha standing tall there to head that away. But is that Matthew Cash taking the corner? We'll have to see. Into the penalty area. And it was actually Cash who took the corner because Tielemans was coming in. He came in with the header and just couldn't get it on target. Yeah, got the header, but just didn't get it right on target. It wasn't really strong enough to count as a goal-scoring opportunity anyway. So, Jose, thank you very much indeed for your help with the updates. Just another reminder, of course, Aston Villa need to score twice to go through. If they win one by a goal on the night and it's equal after normal time, it goes to extra time. And if it's level after extra time, it will go to penalties. Pass back to Martinez from Consa there. Martinez hoping to go long. He does go long. Hoping to find Watkins. And it just misses. Halfway through the first half right now, it is Aston Villa 0, Nottingham Forest 0. And Forest ahead, 1-0 on aggregate. Milenkovic, back to Ortega. And that is Morato there with Williams playing a little bit further up. But Williams loses the ball. And I think it's fair to say that Aston Villa are going to try to look to attack Neco Williams if and when he ventures into the midfield. Cash now on the right. Back to McGinn. Lindelof. Cash. Back to Lindelof. Tielemans. To Cash now. Cash into the penalty area. But I think that was Milenkovic who entered away. It's still back with McGinn, though. And Rodgers can get into the penalty area. Some awkward defending there, but eventually Anderson wins the goal kick off Buendia. And still no more updates. So if it is level between Freiburg and Sporting Braga on aggregate at the end of this game, if the game finishes in 90 minutes, I will take you through to the end of these games if they go to extra time and penalties. I don't see it. And I can in fact tell you that there has been a goal by Palace. An own goal from Paulo Henrique. So as it stands, Palace are now 4-1 ahead on the tie, on aggregate in the tie, and it looks as though they will emulate Chelsea's feat in making the Conference League final as an English team from last year. And of course, another English team to have won the Conference League was West Ham. Leicester City and Aston Villa have made the semi-finals. Brilliant work there from Buendia. A slip from Digne, but Tielemans is there, riding to the cavalry. And now Buendia wins a corner, hoping to whip it in with his wrong foot, but it comes off Jay Acuna, and Aston Villa have had more than a few corners in this game, and this is definitely going to be, well, it's ticking over the 25 minutes right now, and I think it's fair to say that Villa are now asking Matthew Cash to try to whip them in a little bit lower and further into the penalty area. We'll see if he can do that. Well, it is low. Headed. And Watkins is claiming that he was hurt, but I'm not too sure there was much in that. He did meet the ball with his head, and there was actually a collision there between Watkins and a Nottingham Forest defender. So, once again, it looks as though Morato is the defender who's down for Forest. So this is going to eat up definitely at least 1 or 2 minutes of stoppage time. Well, apparently it was Munoz who was responsible for the... Yep, you can see the collision there, and not too sure there would have been a penalty in that, but Morato going down a little bit belatedly, while Watkins clearly felt the force of that. And yeah, Munoz would be good at Arsenal. Also, Tyreek Mitchell would have been good. We do seem to have some good left-backs at Arsenal now with, I wouldn't necessarily call Calafiori the best defender, but he does attack very well, certainly cuts right in. Hinchapi, more defensive, but definitely overlaps and has a very mean whipped low cross. So I would have had Tyreek Mitchell at Arsenal. Munoz would be good. And there are quite a few other good right-backs who could do a job under Mikel Arteta, who has, of course, been offered a new 3-year deal at Arsenal. I'm not too sure why at this particular stage. I would have waited until the end of the season before making that decision. And that looks like a very nasty injury there for Oliver Watkins, with blood coming from his head. Ooh! Man, I'll tell you what, the more I look at that collision, the more I've asked whether or not that was a deliberate headbutt there by Morato and whether a penalty should be awarded. VAR, I think you should be taking a look into this one here, just like they should have looked into that Elliot Anderson tackle from the first leg. Any more score updates? Nope. It's as you were. Still goalless between Villa and Forest. Still goalless between Strasbourg and Vallecano. Crystal Palace and Freiburg have 1-0 leads at home. But while Freiburg have levelled up the tie on aggregate, Crystal Palace have taken a huge 4-1 aggregate lead and should be looking forward to playing in the Conference League Final, which will be taking place the week after the Europa League Final, if that makes any sense. And so Palace, of course, will be playing Arsenal at Selhurst Park on the final day of the season. Villa, of course, will be hoping to either secure the league or have the league sealed by then, which would be wonderful. It's been 22 years, and hopefully Mikel Arteta and his boys can get their act. Villa do, of course, have Tammy Abraham on the bench. Certainly a brilliant player for them during the season when Villa got promoted back to the Premier League with 25 goals. Chelsea fan agreeing with me that it'll probably be Spain or Argentina. As far as the French are concerned, I think that although they have a great deal of talent, there's just too much friction and a lot of... there could be the prediction for the same friction and divisiveness which rocked the Dutch team back in the 90s, back in the day. Especially with Kylian Mbappe as captain. And Watkins has a bandage. I don't know if he'll necessarily need stitches after the game. I think he may, maybe he won't. It looks as though it's just a small gash, which can be set right with some ointment afterwards. And he is, I think, momentarily off the bench because of a blood injury. If blood goes onto your shirt, you have to leave the field and wear a different shirt. Ortega now rolling it out. Morato passing it to Milankovic. Milankovic sending it forward and sending it long. But Lindelof with an important clearance. And I like Lindelof coming into the team. He certainly lent that typical Scandinavian, Swedish composure there. We see him receiving the ball there from Konsa, passing it to Konsa. And Villa sort of crowded in that corner area, but Cash wins the throw-in and Villa can clear their lines. Gone over half an hour now, thanks to the stoppage. Still 0-0, and you can see there's a lot of... Yeah, he does. That huge car and those staples. Nice one there, Jose. Hutchison there. Hoping to find someone, but Torres is able to get there and head it straight back to Martinez, who throws it out to Digne. And Digne is somehow able to escape the clutches of Hutchison, but you see there, Hutchinson has been really tormenting Digne since the first leg. Long pass over to Williams on the left, who passes it back to McAtee. Anderson to McAtee again. And some great interchange play there. Williams hoping to get into the penalty area, but not the best of crosses. It is still back with Williams, though, who can whip it in right-footed. Buendia with an important header. And Dominguez there with a wild volley. Was never going to hit the target. So Villa have actually defended very well. No real shots on goal. At this particular point, Martinez had to be called on to make that brilliant save from Igor Jesus in the first leg. In the second leg, so far at home, he's been quite untroubled. And so the three-man central defence has done its job so far, although you can see there Lindelof has now sort of gotten a more free role to move into the midfield pivot. So I like there's some sort of technical flexibility here from Unai Emery. And a slip there from McGinn, trying to protect the ball, and McAtee picks his pocket. Villa throw there. And Villa captain John McGinn claiming that he was impeded. Nothing really much in that. But you see, this is the problem, though, with Villa. They don't really have that composure in the ball, but a lucky break there eventually finds Watkins. A slip there from Buendia, but not too costly. Buendia laying it off for Tielemans. I think that's Cashew's come in, drilling it into the penalty area, but the defence does eventually clear that. Sort of drilled in low, and Forest defence has been absolutely outstanding so far. But it looks as though, well, Rogers doing brilliantly to get that ball. Finds Tielemans there, who can shoot. Well, it's off target. I'll tell you what, if he had gotten that on target, I don't know if Ortega would have covered that. Brilliant work there from Rogers to pounce on that loose ball. You can see the desire. No, I think Ortega might have had it covered. Needs to be on target, really, to provide any hope of giving Ortega a workout. And, of course, Conor Gallagher scored from a similar area against Aston Villa on that Sunday. Shout out to Eugene from Spurs Asian TV, with whom I was on the Watchalong for his channel. And the impact of that, of course, was that Spurs moved out of the relegation zone with West Ham going back into it. The impact of that, of course, is that West Ham, who play us on Sunday, know that they've got to win to have any chance of getting back out of the relegation zone, and hope that Spurs do not build on that smash and grab at Villa Park. Martinez with the ball now, sending it long and flat. Wonderful kick, hoping to find Watkins, but, well, it was Milenkovic there who took the ball away from the keeper with Watkins lurking, but I think it's fair to say that he had enough control of the ball to make sure that Watkins wasn't going to be in the picture. But some good attacking play now from Aston Villa. Buendia finds his way into the penalty area. Beautiful composure with his feet. Great footwork. And it's Oliver George Arthur Watkins, just after 35 minutes, who puts Aston Villa ahead in the tie and levels it up on aggregate, and you can tell how much that goal meant to him. Now, at the risk of being a killjoy, I will let you know that there will be an offside check, because I'm not too sure if Watkins was in, well, maybe there will be a VAR check, but if there isn't, we're going to, obviously find out a little bit more. We will, of course, see the replay. Buendia there justifying his selection with some brilliant footwork, really. It all stemmed from a bit of miscommunication there between Milenkovic and Ortega. The attempted clearance, finding its way to Buendia from the strong head of Tielemans. Watkins isn't offside there, but we're going to find out how his movement is. Great work, of course. No, he's not offside. He's been played on. And so I can tell you right now that it is Aston Villa 1, Nottingham Forest 0. 1-1 on aggregate, with Oliver Watkins having levelled up the tie, but Forest having a chance to come back immediately. Not the best headed clearance, but old reliable Victor Lindelof coming to save the day. And can Watkins make the most of this one? You can see Villa now at their best, starting to move forward and hoping to find some progress there, but instead they run straight into Forest midfield like a train hitting the buffers. Morgan Rogers being set up. Dominguez now. Yep, confirmation of the scores. It's 1-1 on aggregate, but 1-0 on the night. And Villa will be looking for one more goal to give them some sort of a boost. 37 minutes have ticked over. It is Aston Villa 1, Nottingham Forest 0, 1-1 on aggregate. Beautiful footwork there. Takes it past Cunha there, does Buendia. And a short cross into the penalty area under Ortega's desperate dive. It's Neco Williams who's playing Watkins on side, and you can see how much that goal means to Unai Emery and the Aston Villa faith. We're going to find out, though, because it's not going to be easy for Arsenal to play against PSG. I think Crystal Palace should be favourites for the final. And there will be an English Europa League finalist too. There were 2 last year now. And, some great work here from John McGinn, finding Watkins into the penalty area, saved by Ortega. And Rodgers there with a very disappointing follow-up. And I suppose the only good thing about that is it doesn't go for a goal kick, it's a throw-in. But the former Manchester City goalkeeper there doing brilliantly to prevent his team from going 2-0 down on the night. Actually, it was straight at him, really, but, the importance of that save cannot be denied. And yes, it could go to penalties, so it'll be difficult to predict a winner there. And I think Jose will confirm it, but John McGinn there with some brilliant work, finding Watkins. And I think it's fair to say that Watkins had no choice but to take a shot from that area with the defence pretty much sticking to him like glue. And yes, there has been an equaliser in the Palace and Donetsk game. Eguinaldo on 34 minutes after an assist from Paulo Henrique, whose own goal made it 4-1 on aggregate on the night. It is now 4-2 to Palace on aggregate. And thank you very much indeed once again, Jose. And yes, the wounded soldier gets it done. The flesh is weak, but the spirit is willing. A little biblical reference there for you. It's all Aston Villa in this first half right now, but Forest are more than capable of scoring on the counter. Surprisingly, though, they haven't really been at their attacking best tonight. You just know, though, that if Gibbs White were to come on in the second half, they could definitely cause Aston Villa a few problems. As things stand, if it stays like this after 90 minutes, we will go into extra time and we could go into penalties. Emi Martinez is the best goalkeeper in the world when it comes to penalty shootouts, but Aston Villa's penalty-taking skills have left a lot to be desired. And Pau Torres there doing some brilliant work on the left side of the defence, backing up Digne and making sure that there is no more headway. And you can see with Digne on his own, Hutchinson was having the time of his life again, but Torres has now come more into the game. And we've ticked over 40 minutes already. It is still Aston Villa 1, Nottingham Forest 0. Oliver Watkins levelling things up on aggregate on the night. Not the best of passes there. Hoping to have found Tillemans, but it was just beyond him. And it's Hutchinson against Torres now. Torres with an unfortunate slip, but Buendia comes back to cover. And this is the best part about, how Aston Villa's midfielders play as well, because they know they're also that on occasions they do play the high line, hoping to set an offside trap. But when the offside trap gets broken, they could very well find themselves in all sorts of fun. And a huge update from the Freiburg Sporting Braga game. Freiburg have taken a 2-0 lead. It's Manzambi on 41 minutes who has put the Germans ahead on aggregate, 3-2 on aggregate, 2-0 on the night. So hopefully the Freiburg goalkeeper Atabolu, whose injury time error cost them that winner against Sporting Braga, can breathe a sigh of relief. And of course, seeing Dorgela sent off as early as 6 minutes would have helped the Germans' cause to no end. Freiburg are not going to be easy opposition, mind you, given how well they dismantled Celta Vigo earlier in the competition. That was also in the quarterfinal stage. And Celta Vigo, let's not forget, got rid of Olympique Lyonnais, who had topped the Europa League phase ahead of Aston Villa. Hutchinson gets up, and you can see there that Buendia has come back to aid Digne. Pass back to Anderson. Hutchinson there. And that was Dominguez who had come to aid in the midfield. But Cunha passes it to Milenkovic, who now gets it to Morata with Williams hugging the left-sided touchline. Hoping to send it through to Chris Wood, but doesn't find him. And Emi Martinez is able to dive onto that. 42 minutes just ticked over. Aston Villa 1, Nottingham Forest 0 on the night. 1-1 on aggregate. As things stand, Freiburg are 2-0 up and looking set to make the final themselves. So an Anglo-German clash on the cards. Well, it wasn't going to be that way for the Champions League with Bayern Munich going out. Maybe it'll be that way in the Europa League. And this is dangerous for Aston Villa now, but some very composed ball play. And Torres eventually finds Matthew Cash, who now has a lot of space to run, finds John McGinn, John McGinn, of course, the long-time Aston Villa midfielder and now, of course, club captain. Such an inspirational figure for his team. And, of course, will be starting for Scotland in this upcoming World Cup too, as will Victor Lindelof with Sweden, who receives the ball back from Matthew Cash, and he's forced to pass it back to Ezri Konsa. Ken Konsa sent it forward. Risky pass there, very nearly intercepted, but it finds its way through to Torres. Tielemans now finds Watkins, and now we can easily recognise Watkins with that bandage on his head. Not unlike when Paul Ince had to have a bandage on his head after having a head collision when England played against Italy at the Olympic Stadium in Rome in that epic qualifier for the 98 World Cup in France. Doing a Terry Butcher there with a bloodied shirt and the bandage on his head. Paul Gascoigne memorably said he looked like a pint of Guinness. And I do like my Guinness. Lindelof. And just to be clear, I do not promote drinking on this channel. We don't. So whenever you see me with a drink, it'll be an energy drink or a bottle of water. Taken quickly, but a little bit too hastily. And it's Anderson now who has to try to weave his way out, and that's going to be a free kick to Nottingham Forest there, Villa being a little bit over-eager. So we are now into the last seconds of normal time in the first half, but there should be some substantial time added on for that collision between Watkins and Morata in the first half there. Buendia sending Anderson tumbling. Certainly that Watkins goal has done a great deal to calm a lot of nerves, but maybe Villa will feel confident about it. And you can watch this work again and again and again. The brilliant footwork there from Buendia. And like all good goal poachers, Watkins is in the right place at the right time. We've ticked over into stoppage time right now, and we're going to find out how much has been added. I would expect at least 2 minutes. Pass back there to Martinez from Konsa. And Buendia there receiving the loose clearance. And this is what you want to see from Aston Villa. Tielemans was bundled over, but was able to get the ball through. And Watkins and Rodgers, you see there, being very sharp and very, eager to receive that ball. Great work there from McGinn trying to help out Cashew with slip, but a free kick will probably be belatedly awarded to Forest. And we have 4 minutes of time added on. Probably sounds just about right. So Aston Villa are going to have to be very careful there. Not the nicest looking challenge there from McGinn on McAtee. Little Mac against bigger Mac right there. Any more updates from the other games? And yes, an update from the Conference League semi-final. Alemão has put Rayo Vallecano ahead against Strasbourg. So the Spanish team are 1-0 ahead on the night, 2-0 on aggregate. And a huge ball, hoping to find Chris Wood. Konsa does come back to cover, though, and Lindelof is there with him. And Konsa clears the danger. Tielemans. McGinn. Looping left-footed pass, hoping to find Luca Digne. And despite Hutchison's best efforts, it absolutely does. Hutchinson there hoping to reach that, but couldn't quite get it. Buendia, not the best of passes there, and Forest can clear their lines. But it is back with Watkins, though. Lindelof. And I'll tell you what, this selection of Lindelof for tonight, a tactical masterclass there from Unai Emery. And Villa hoping for a free kick there, but Nieberg wasn't really interested. And short pass there, but play, I think, will be stopped. And, yep, Nieberg does, in fact. Yep, a booking there for Jaya Cunha. An ugly-looking tackle there on Emi Buendia. So as things stand, as we go back to the scores, it looks as though Freiburg will be heading through to the Europa League final. And we'll probably be seeing a Crystal Palace Rayo Vallecano semi-final with Rayo Vallecano 2-0 ahead on aggregate, 1-0 ahead on the night. We're in the 3rd minute of stoppage time going on to the 4th, and Aston Villa would definitely love to score from this free kick to, maybe settle some nerves. Buendia gets up and runs into the penalty area, and it will be birthday boy Yuri Tillemans to try and send a looping kick into the area, hoping to find a teammate. Well, he does it. He only finds the Spanish-German goalkeeper Ortega, who sends a nice throw out to, I think that's Elliot Anderson on the left. Yes, it is. Anderson being barricaded at the moment by Morgan Rogers, and Rogers concedes the free kick. So into the last 30 seconds of the half, and Villa cannot afford to concede an equaliser at this time. And already this has the makings of a classic European semi-final between two English teams. Only the 7th all-English European semi-final in history, as BBC Sport have confirmed earlier on. And 3 of those semi-finals have taken place between Liverpool and Chelsea in the Champions League / European Cup, of course. So we've just ticked over 4 minutes, and this probably might be the last chance for Forest to get anything from this game. Villa are back. Villa are defending. Ezri Konsa saying that they have to forget the past 3 games tonight, and so far they seem to have done that. Into the penalty area, but Jesus completely fluffing his lines and turning that behind for a goal kick. And is that going to be the final action of the half? We shall see. And it looks as though it is the final action of the half. And a great first half for Aston Villa in terms of settling nerves. Ollie Watkins there with yet another goal. And what a time for Aston Villa's greatest ever Premier League goal scorer to get in on the act. So this is how it's set up. And if there are any of you in the chat, if you want anything to say about this game or any other games, by all means, go ahead. And of course, if there is a situation where I might have to leave the keyboard, I will inform you. Had a bit of a slight stomach bug today, so thankfully I've powered through. I'm a soldier, just like Ollie Watkins. Now I can't compare to him. Yeah, once again, I also want to thank Hanno for letting me do this tonight. Obviously, the Champions League was all the rage. I'm not too sure why, we didn't do the PSG Bayern second leg. I suppose it's fair to say that we probably didn't miss very much, but there was some big goal mouth action from Bayern's side. PSG holding on defensively. They did concede a very late equaliser on the night from Harry Kane, but they held out to secure their passage to the final, their 2nd consecutive final. And they are, of course, hoping to continue the legacy by winning it. They will be up against an Arsenal team that have at times bluffed their way through, but you cannot say that Arsenal don't deserve to be there. Our 2nd Champions League final after 2006, and also we have been in the European Cup final before, back in the day, and I will confirm that in a minute. I thought that was between Valencia back in the day, but that was actually the 1980 Cup final of the Cup Winners' Cup. Of course, Nottingham Forest won the European Cup that year. Arsenal's trophy haul in Europe has been quite simply abysmal. The Intercities Fairs Cup back in the day was, a precursor to the UEFA Cup, but the records aren't even maintained by UEFA these days. Now, as it turns out, we had never made a European Cup final. We were runners-up in the Cup Winners' Cup in 1980, runners-up in the Super Cup in 94 after winning the Cup Winners' Cup. We just failed to defend the Cup Winners' Cup in 95. So as it turns out, 2005-2006 was our first ever European Cup final, Champions League final. And how tragic that was. Jens Lehmann getting sent off, Robert Pires being substituted in his home city for Manuel Almunia, Sol Campbell still putting us ahead, but Barcelona scoring 2 late goals to win that game. Villa, of course, on the other hand, won the European Cup back in the day under Tony Barton, taking over from Ron Saunders at the time. And Villa also won the Super Cup the following season. So they do have a much better European legacy than us. And if they reach a Europa League final, which would be Emery's 6th, and go on to win it, they'll still have a better European legacy than us. At least much. And once again, confirmation of the updates. Freiburg are 2-0 up against Sporting Braga on the night, 3-2 up on aggregate, so they are looking good to reach the final. Rather tragic, really, for Braga in a way. Wolverhampton Wanderers and Portugal legend João Moutinho in the Braga team, hoping to crown a long and distinguished career by reaching a European final. Might not be tonight. Palace and Shakhtar Donetsk drawing 1-1 on the night, but Palace already well set to go through following their 3-1 win in the first leg. Vallecano 1-0 up over Strasbourg on the night, 2-0 on aggregate, so they will be expected to go to the Conference League final. And of course, the featured match tonight, as is shown on the banner, Villa against Forest. And I don't know why it is, but the comments always seem to dry up around about this time. And so I think this is it. Maybe after this season, I won't be doing any more watch-alongs for the channel. Well, it is what it is, I would say. Just taking a look at the Crystal Palace team that's playing tonight. It is Palace's usual 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1. That's the formation that always seems to give Unai Emery a great deal of problems. Do not ask me why. More or less a stronger team than the team that played against Bournemouth. Tyreek Mitchell back at left wing back ahead of Devaney, who was literally given the runaround at Dean Court. And Mateta back in the team, Richards back in the team, Wharton and Kamada in the middle. And they're holding on for now. And that's all they need to do. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to take a look at this because the updates on BBC Sport have shown that the red card that was awarded has been rescinded. So let's take a look at that. Oh, no, wrong game. Oh, you're off it tonight, thankfully. The red card for Dorgeles was not rescinded, and Braga 2-0 down, 3-2 on it. Anyway, going back to the way this game has been played, surprisingly, Forest have not been able to trouble Emi Martinez at all in goal. while Aston Villa have had more of the action. And you could say that that's pretty much the way it's expected to go with Villa at Villa Park, especially playing at home. And you've also got to give credit to Villa for not losing their composure whenever they've seen their attempts not be successful at times. Buendia does have some really good qualities. The only problem is, at times when he plays in the centre of midfield or in that number 10 position with Morgan Rogers on the left, he can be bullied. But Emery's decision to start Victor Lindelof tonight, have him sort of start in the back three, but then float into the middle, brilliant. Lindelof has earned his smorgasbord tonight. And the worst part is that my phone has been giving me a lot of problems of late. I just want to break this stupid thing and get a new one. Means that you probably won't be hearing much of me on Instagram for a few days, but so be it. It certainly won't be long now before the players come out for the second half. I'm not too sure what Vitor Pereira will be telling his teammates. He'll probably tell them just to stay a little bit tighter, but be a little bit more dominating in the midfield. And what's also impressive about Villa's play tonight is that they've managed to get on the front foot more often than not. They haven't allowed Forest to dominate them while trying to play out from the back. And you can see as well that Morgan Rogers has also made a difference tonight. Looks a lot sharper, a lot less lethargic. And I don't know what it is with these players who seem to be overplayed, and we have ourselves thinking that they should be rested. And yes, Morgan Rogers should have been rested for the game against Tottenham if you're going to, completely field the second team. But he's proved his worth, and I'm sure if he wins a trophy, he would love to stay, have a crack at the Super Cup. We'll see what happens. Villa should do enough to reach the Champions League. All they need to do is beat Burnley, and they are more or less there. And they will, of course, be playing Liverpool at Villa Park and Manchester City at the Etihad in their final two games of the season. Now, what's sad about Villa is that when you take a look at the run-in that they have right now at certain stages this season, this was, in some ways tailor-made for them to make an assault on the league, and they could definitely have done so, especially after that brilliant win over Arsenal at Villa Park. But that period in January when they were more or less disemboweled by the loss of all three of their key midfielders, Boubacar Kamara out for the season, Yuri Tillemans and John McGinn, who thankfully are playing tonight at a certain stage, they ended up having some pretty disappointing home performances against Everton and Brentford in the league, losing those games 1-0. They scraped a draw against the Leeds United team they had beaten at Ellen Road earlier in the season. But in Europe, of course, at that particular stage, they were still doing really well. They got through their second round tie easily enough. They thrashed Bologna in the quarterfinals. And, of course, avoided a rematch against Daniel Marlin, whose Roma side lost to Bologna in dramatic circumstances in that second round clash. And now, of course, at this stage of the season, Villa do have their core players still fit, with the exception of Amadou Onana. But these matches now are going to be exceptionally important as they try to negotiate their further passage in the tournament. Aston Villa, of course, faced Lille in the round of 16, a repeat of their epic Euro Conference League quarterfinal from 2 seasons ago. Finally, man. Okay, so we are, of course, back live, and I will change the banner accordingly. Of course, there will be some updates, of course, for the other games as and when they're taking place. And there has been a change made by Nottingham Forest. It is the club captain, Ryan Yates, who's come on. I'm not too sure why, but we will find out what the situation is. And Yates, of course, being the club captain, has the armband, and it's confirmed that he's come on for James McAtee. So not too sure if McAtee is nursing an injury or Pereira has decided that he wants a little bit more experience. Yates is, of course, a defender, so it could very well be that he's trying to, shut up shop and maybe hit Villa on the counter. Didn't exactly do that with any great success earlier on tonight, but there is still some time. Not long now before Forest get things underway. Forest now attacking from right to left towards the Holt end, while Villa are defending the Holt end. And so the Holt end, of course, is the iconic end where many of Villa's winners have taken place this season. But now they've got to defend it. And they kicked off a long pass back from, I think that's Ryan Yates to Ortega, who sends it long. And Jesus and Lindelof getting into a battle there. And that is a free kick which goes the way of Aston Villa. William Arthur Philip Lewis Mountbatten Windsor. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. Matthew Cash, of course, the former Nottingham Forest defender. Ezri Konsa. To Cash, again. Keeps the ball in play, or does he? Yes, he does. Only just, though. And this is a problem that Villa occasionally has. Sometimes they can be quite lazy with their passing. You cannot afford that. You've got to make sure that you are pinpoint. Cash sending it forward, hoping to find Watkins. He does find Watkins. Will that ball be kept in play? No, it won't be. Watkins just took it out. Nothing much there between that and the other. Torres, of course, sending it forward, and that should be a throw for Forest, and it is. Jai Cunha letting that go out of play. And of course, I will be refreshing the main score page on the BBC Sport website to keep you informed. And why is everyone left? There's literally nobody watching. Matthew Cash there, hoping the thread of the pass through the eye of the needle, but failing. Milenkovic. and forcing a back pass there to Ortega, but Ortega has it under control. Ortega to Morato. Morato sending it forward. And you can see there's a difference in Villa's play. They look sharp. They look up for it. They know that this is their last chance to really win a trophy this season. They will still qualify for the Champions League, of course, if they beat Burnley, with the top 5 a reward for the English clubs due to the coefficient system. Lindelof sending it forward to them. It is Watkins who holds up play and passes it back to Tielemans. Matthew Cash now. Over to McGinn, hoping to try and cut in with the cross. And I'll tell you what, if Rodgers had made better contact on that cross, that could have potentially promised something good. McGinn there. Oh, that went just through everybody now, didn't it? Rodgers needed to make sure he kept his composure. It looks as though Watkins was probably tested for concussion when he was down injured, and it looks as though he's passed that test. But Villa do also have Tammy Abraham on the bench. And, of course, another big motivator for Villa to win the semi-final and go through to the final is that the final will be taking place in Istanbul at Besiktas's home stadium, from where Tammy Abraham re-signed for the Villa. So a nice homecoming of sorts for the former Chelsea player who also ended up enjoying himself in Italy. And Tammy Abraham is one of the few players who could also complete the unique treble of winning the Champions League, Europa League and Conference League. Conference League winner with Roma under Jose Mourinho, a Champions League winner under Tommy Tuchel with Chelsea. Will he be a Europa League winner with Aston Villa under Unai Emery? Pau Torres. Back to Konsa. Villa composed on the ball, but they've got to avoid making any mistakes. And this is the problem again with Torres. He does differ a lot. Ryan Yates basically crowding him, bullying him almost. And the referee saying, that's enough of that, Ryan. I'm not going to let you get away. Some very good footwork there from the Spaniard, it can't be denied. And the linesman putting an end to those shenanigans. And you can see Yates' arrival has actually, brought about a lot more aggression in the Forest midfield. The club captain there, desperate to make a European final and maybe even lift some European silverware. John McGinn. Not the best of passes there, but not very well dealt with by his Forest counterpart. It's with Buendia now. Tielemans, back to Buendia, and back to Torres. So the madness has been sort of dissipated for now, in a way. And Forest are still working quite hard on the ball. Not really being able to go too far forward, but they're still hopeful that they can maintain their shape and avoid conceding any real goals there. But, and will in fact concede a free kick, a needless foul there on Omari Hutchinson, and booking there for one of the Forest coaching staff. Starting to get a bit heated. Senior there basically taking out Hutchinson, and it's one of the coaching staff of Nottingham Forest who was not very happy with that little piece of tomfoolery. And you can see there the former Arsenal and Chelsea youth players not very happy with that. Wincing and gingerly walking there. Any updates from the other games? Yep, a big update. Crystal Palace have taken a 2-1 lead over Shakhtar Donetsk with Ismail Assar putting them 2-1 up on 52 minutes. So 5-2 on aggregate. And that is another English team in the Conference League final. And that will be an Aston Villa free kick. Len Nyberg, of course, maintaining control over proceedings and not leaving any room for any kind of tomfoolery. No change between Freiburg and Sporting Braga. No change as of yet between Strasbourg and Rayo Vallecano. And no change as of yet between Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest. Cash finding McGinn on the right. McGinn up against Williams. And he wins a corner off the Welshman. So will be McGinn to take this corner. Left-footed, hoping to swing it in. And you can see Lindelof, Watkins and Torres there in deep discussion. Again, Lindelof's selection has been a masterstroke. And it would be nice if Lindelof were to win with Aston Villa doing what he couldn't do with Manchester United. With a short corner instead, played to Buendia and now to Cash. Tielemans there, sending it into the penalty area, hoping to find Buendia, which he does. And some impressive goal-mouth action there. Some desperate goal-mouth action, must be said. McGinn with a shot. It was Lindelof who was actually down in the penalty area, and Villa were hoping for a penalty. But after all that, I think Forest should clear their lines. But there could be I don't know what's going on there. I'm not too sure. But it was actually Torres whose shirt was being pulled there by Milenkovic. And I think if there is a VAR check for a penalty, then that could very well end up being a decisive call. It was Torres who was sent to the ground after Milenkovic pulled his shirt. And clearly the Spaniard, who won the Europa League under Unai Emery with Villarreal, beating Arsenal in the semis and United in the final, was not very happy. And the referee's going to the monitor. This could be big. This could be big, people. Milenkovic there, clearly aggressively pulling Pau Torres' shirt. That is, I'm sorry, but there is no excuse for that. That is a penalty all day long. That's a penalty all day long. Well, we had one penalty awarded in the home leg when Forest beat Villa, but now the tables have turned. The problem is, I think Milenkovic will probably be literally the villain in Nottingham if Forest go on to lose tonight. The ball forward, Buendia keeps it in play. It's Torres and not Lindelof who was actually who got to that ball, and Milenkovic there yanking it back. I'm sorry, but that is disgusting. Two disgusting errors that have cost penalties in this semi-final tie already. The problem is, though, that Villa's record on penalties this season has not been good. They've been their penalty taker for a long time, and he's missed more than his fair share. Rodgers has missed. And so there was a possibility it could go to penalties, but in the 57th minute, ticking into 58, we could see a penalty goal here. Emi Buendia. He's taken a lot of criticism this season, but he could be the hero tonight. And he is the hero! He is the hero! Well, for now, at the very least. Not exactly as emphatic or as perfect as Chris Woods' penalty in the first leg, but this was important. You almost thought that it was going to be a bit of a P-roller in a way, but it was hit low. It was hit hard enough to evade Stefan Ortega's grasp. The German goalkeeper diving to his right, but the direction just took it beyond him. And Emi Buendia has had his critics this season, including yours truly. But he's popped up with what could very well be a priceless goal that could potentially send Aston Villa through, whoops, to only their second European final in history. Two 2-0 on the night, 2-1 on aggregate. And we haven't even clocked an hour yet. But again, if Forest do score a goal, the cat will be amongst the pigeons. And knowing Villa as well as we do, a 2-0 lead or a 2-goal lead is never, ever a safe lead. You only need to take a look at when Aston Villa played Sunderland not too recently in the Premier League. They were 3-1 up. 2 goals in the span of barely 2 or 3 minutes brought it back to 3-all. Sunderland could have even won it very late on, but Habib Diarra saw his attempted chip saved by Emi Martinez. And barely seconds after that, Tammy Abraham, on as a replacement for Ollie Watkins, met a low and true cross from Luca Digne and scored a breathless winner. And you can see what that goal means to the Aston Villa fans. Aston Villa fans are dreaming. They were, of course, the pre-tournament favourites to win the tournament. Can they at least perform part of their bargain by reaching the final and holding on? We haven't yet clicked onto an hour yet. We will very soon. But already now the ball is deep in the Aston Villa half and they've got to try to clear their lines, and they don't really do so. Dominguez receives the ball. Hutchinson there, hoping to find Anderson, but that is very well cleared out by the outstanding Victor Lindelof. It's passed all the way back now to Ortega from Cunha. So, Nottingham Forest, you've had a brilliant run. What do? And it's straight to Watkins. Victory! But it won't count. Offside against the England international. And we already have a comment. Welcome back, Jose. Please promise me you'll stay with me. Wait, was he offside there? I'm pretty sure there was a defender playing him on. That has to be checked, surely. Well, the offside decision stands. And just for a minute, Villa were in dreamland. It looks as though your prediction of a 2-0 win is good so far, but there is half an hour left. And as we all know, anything can happen. And so, desperate times call for desperate measures. Team captain Morgan Gibbs-White. Or is he being sent in stance? He's taken his boots with him, so it could very well be that he's been asked to change and get his uniform. Watkins, though, on the left right now. He doesn't really have Digne with him, but he's doing some great work. Dominguez, not really learning from Milenkovic's foul part, and that will be an Aston Villa throw. And you can see right now, Aston Villa have the momentum. Into the penalty area. It's with McGinn. Straight at Ortega. And that really would have put the cat amongst the pigeons. No change in the other scores as of yet. And I'll just refresh that. Thank you. Yeah, it didn't connect with that cleanly enough. And it was pretty much in Ortega's reach. 62 minutes. Aston Villa 2. Nottingham Forest 0. 2-1 on aggregate. Oliver Watkins in the first half. And Emi Buendia penalty in the second. Emi Buendia making a strong case to be man of the match tonight. And you can see here, the total, in terms of total attempts, Aston Villa have had 13, Forest have had 2. The domination has been without any doubt. 7 attempts on target to Forest's goose egg. What a contrast. And I'll tell you what, all those fans who were talking about how, misguided Emery's decision was, and I was critical of him, I hold my hand up. So far, he's proved me wrong. But again, there's about 7 minutes left of this tie. And with stoppages, that could go to a full half hour. So anything can happen. A 2-goal lead is never safe if you're Aston Villa. And that is Digne, who meets Ortega's kick with a header, but Forest can very easily clear their lines. Elliot Anderson sending, I think that's Igor Jesus forward. Jesus to Hutchinson. And this could potentially be dangerous. Loop cross into the penalty area, but that is never going to be on target. That wasn't actually Jesus who was in the midfield there, or was it? I should stand corrected there. And I want to say a huge big up as well to my good friend, the Long-Haired Yeti. Check out his channel, the Long-Haired Yeti's Cave. He is, of course, doing a watch-along for this, and I'm sure he might be feeling slightly sick, just like the Forest fans right now. But I'll tell you what, if you asked him what his priority would have been between staying in the Premiership and winning this Europa League, he would have said the Premiership every time. But with Forest more or less safe, the Europa League would have been a beautiful gift. As things stand, though, it might not happen. And a free kick there conceded by John McGinn on Neco Williams. And this little duel there between McGinn and Williams is always going to be interesting. It's got the hallmarks, as I've said, of Scotland-Wales clash, be it in rugby union or in football. And Jose with a nice comment here saying Buendia looking more and more of a bargain player than Odegaard, in my opinion. Look, Buendia has his good qualities. He certainly has some great footwork. He does have a good shot. He can wiggle his way through. He's sort of a really niggly player. But if you pack the midfield against him, if you put some really big, strong people against him, he can be bullied. And that is why, Villa still needed someone like Ross Barkley. Yes, I know he started against Spurs and didn't really look too well, but he doesn't get out-muscled very easily. And Cash sending it out for a throw. I think he was hoping to find McGinn, with a forward pass, but couldn't quite make it. Williams to Morato, trying to clear his lines. And he somehow ends up finding Yates. Williams chipping it forward. And you see the difference now. Villa, far from being lethargic as they often have been, they are the first to the ball. Rodgers doing some brilliant work, sending it through, but the shot on his left foot was a little bit too weak. Easily gathered by Stefan Ortega. 65 minutes and 30 seconds gone. It is Aston Villa 2, Nottingham Forest 0. And as things stand, Villa are looking good to go through to the Europa League final. And with none of the ties being being level on aggregate, it looks as though we will not be going to extra time or penalties. But again, if Forest score and it finishes 2-1 in normal time, we go to extra time. And we could face penalties. And Chelsea fan back in the building, a reminder, hit the like button, subscribe, share this channel, get more people to watch this. I mean, you've got me commentating. It's Aston Villa against Forest, an all-Premiership clash for a Europa League final spot. What more could you want on a Thursday night? And cynical foul there by Rodgers on, I think that was Williams. And there's actually another Forest player down. Talk about a chain reaction, huh? And of course, just a reminder, there is no away goals rule. If both teams are level on aggregate, that means if Forest score to make it 2-1 and it stays that way after 90 minutes, there will be extra time. And if it stays that way after extra time, there will be penalties. But as things stand, this match looks set to be decided in the next 23 minutes. Just coming up to 3/4 of the way through the match, and I think it's fair to say that Villa have been the better team. They haven't exactly been, looking to dominate very much, but again, they've controlled the game, they've controlled the tempo, they've made sure they've had more of the opportunities. They haven't allowed Forest to press. And so I've been quite disappointed with Forest tonight, really disappointed. I mean, they've not really shown any kind of an urgency, and you would think that with a European final on the line, they'd look to do better. And Forest hoping for a foul there by Torres, but Nieberg says no dice. And once again, the outstanding Victor Lindelof is able to mop everything up. But, yep, finds its way through to Buendia. And this time around, Nieberg does award the free kick. Club captain Ryan Yates, as we tick over the three-quarter mark, with a rather cynical foul on the 5'7" Argentinian. The Argentinian who, of course, scored that memorable late winner against Arsenal. A sickener for Arsenal fans, but an absolute thing of beauty for all those people standing in the Holt end that day. And the memes that were made of that, the videos that were made of that to the tune of My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. You could not make it. Now, Torres. The only question is, of course, assuming Villa do go on to make the final, does Emery go up with the same lineup? Because you would think that Amadou Onana would recover in time for the final in Istanbul. But again, Lindelof's importance to this team, despite having played nowhere near enough minutes, I think this has to go down as one of the signings of the season. Marco Bizot has proven to be a brilliant understudy for Emi Martinez, despite that foul par against Newcastle in the FA Cup. And this is almost as if Buendia has been a player re-signed, although, there have been moments where he hasn't been quite on it. And Ryan Yates there, but not the best of play from Lindelof this time. And have Forest smash the offside trap. Word against Martinez, and Martinez wins. And finally, the flag goes up. Or does it? Well, this is the danger when you're playing against, when you're Aston Villa playing that high line. Wood going through on goal. Wood against Martinez, and the Argentinian wins this time. He had no answer to the New Zealanders' penalty, but he was not letting Chris Wood go through as we tick over to 70 minutes. 20 minutes left. And that is a P-roller in comparison. Ticked over to 70 minutes now. 20 minutes to go, plus stoppages. It is Aston Villa 2, Nottingham Forest 0 on the night. And I tell you what, that should have been called an offside. I think, the brilliance of that save was that Martinez was preparing for Wood to try and bend it into the far corner. Instead, Wood went for the near corner, but he stuck his big leg out and snuffed the danger. That is a save that can win matches. That is a save that could win titles. And already we see Nottingham Forest bringing on the cavalry. Exactly. He had to curl it into the corner, and I think Martinez would have had that covered anyway. And that's always the advantage of being a 6'5" goalkeeper with a huge wingspan. And I can tell you right now that Morato is a player that's been taken out, and Bakwa has come in to probably either shore up the midfield or maybe, provide some more defensive cover there. And brilliant play there. Sees Buendia in the penalty area, but not able to get the shot on target. It was with his wrong foot. And you see Buendia there really proving his worth. I think he's probably been the man of the match tonight. Watkins there. Great work from him. Seriously. That pass to Buendia, chef's kiss. And listen, I think it's a case of, Marlon not being adequately used by Unai Emery and wanting to leave. And it looks as though with both Marlon and Gesson, they are excellent players who just aren't in the right system. Marlon did quite well, of course, in the 3-4-2-1 system at Roma under Gasperini, and Gesson was doing well under a similar system at Palace. For now, though, Nottingham Forest have a corner. And it's the big Italian striker, Luca, who's also come on, and I will just confirm that. Lorenzo Luca has come on for Chris Wood. So this is Forest's first corner of the night, and Villa have conceded quite a few goals on corners already. I think it is Bakwa who has this corner, left-footed in-swinger, quite high and looping, and Martinez claims. So the worst part about Marlon, and we all know that he was an ex-Arsenal youth player who was there at the time of the likes of Eddie Nketiah, Josh Da Silva and others, is that he was, Lindelof there missing that pass from Rodgers. But Forest wanting a free kick, but Nieberg saying no dice. Well, actually, he has ordered a free kick, expecting an advantage to be played. So whenever Marlon would come off the bench, he'd score some goals and make some brilliant contributions, but I think he wanted more first-team football. And inexplicably, Villa make a change, and Victor Lindelof has now ended up going off, so Villa are going to move back to a back four. No more of this roaming role. But Bukhada, I'm not too sure that this will really work. Villa are not comfortable by any means. You saw there with that Wood chance, and why Wood was taken off to be replaced by the Italian looker, I will never know. So Marlon obviously looked really good, but I think it came to a point where he wanted to play more football. He had a chance to go to Roma, started scoring goals. And I tell you what, if I were a Villa fan, I'd be quite grateful that I weren't facing his Roma team in the quarterfinals. But a looping free kick there, and that wasn't... I think there was some tomfoolery going on, and Glenn Nieberg is saying, I'm sorry, but things are not being done properly. He was never going to chip Martinez. He had to curl it into the corner. But either way, Martinez just came up trumps. But the danger is not over. And this is a problem. When Villa start to sit back and they invite pressure, they can be weak. Martinez laying it off to Hutchinson, and that was into the penalty area, but inexplicably headed out. And can Watkins clear the danger? No, it's a slip, but brilliant work again from Watkins. I mean, when he's on the floor, that pass he makes to send Rodgers forward, just like he did with Buendia. And this time around, Rodgers letting the team down with a bit of tired footwork. He needs to be taken off. But Tielemans, the birthday boy, also getting it on the act, and Cash has now come in. Rodgers now, what does Rodgers do? Slips it through to Watkins on the left. It was Digne, actually, not Cash on the left. Cash is back on the right where he needs to be. 75 minutes have ticked over. 15 minutes to go. Villa 2-0 up. Looking set to go through, but they need a third goal to make things secure, and John McGinn ends up winning a throw. Another reminder, as Martin said, please keep hitting the like button. Please subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new here. I don't know if you are. And that should be headed out for a throw, and that will be an Aston Villa throw. I think you can start to sense that Forest are tiring a little bit, but we'll find out more about everything. And have there been some updates? Yes, a huge update from Germany. Freiburg have taken... No, there are no updates. Yes, there is. Pau Victor had gotten Braga back into the tie. They were 3 all on aggregate, but barely seconds up. No. It was actually Kubler who scored his second goal to make it 4-2 on aggregate. Pau Victor on 79 minutes has put Braga back in with some chance, giving them some hope with about 10 minutes to go in normal time. And if Braga do score to make it 3-2 on the night, it will be 4 all on aggregate. So we could go into extra time, and I will keep you updated there. And, of course, it is 2-1 between Palace and Donetsk on the night, 5-2 on aggregate, 1-0 to Vallecano on the night, 2-0 on aggregate. So we are set for a Crystal Palace Shakhtar Donetsk final. And Watkins finding him again! And again makes it 3! Captain Supreme, Captain Fantastic, Captain, Leader, Legend! That's being left at the back of the Nottingham Forest defence. And the skipper has made them pay. If only I could hear the commentary now, but it looks as though it's all over. And this, my friends, is European heritage, especially under Unai Emery. Throw from Martinez. Torres with that long pass. Rodgers played onside. Header back to Martinez. McGinn free on the right. And even if Ortega had, died for that, I don't think he would have gotten it. But that bend over there, just exquisite. And the captain seals it. And so that means Nottingham Forest are now going to have to score 2 goals just to make things even on the night. Well, I do not see that happening. So, Jose, if you're watching this, I think your 2-0 prediction has not been satisfied, but I'm sure you can agree that was a great goal. And the Scotsman, the skipper, is delighted. Super John McGinn. The flags are raised high, the salt iron's high, and with 12 minutes to go, it is Aston Villa 3, Nottingham Forest 0. I keep forgetting this. 3-1 on aggregate. Chris Wood's penalty in the first leg, cancelled out by Watkins. Buendia adding to the score with a finely taken penalty. And skipper John McGinn applying the finishing touches. So as things stand, it will be Aston Villa in the final of the Europa League. Unless Forest can, take advantage of some slack with the defending and Villa completely implode to send us into extra time, we shall see. But I tell you what, in Europe so far, Villa have rarely, if ever, put a foot wrong. I mean, they did have a pretty poor defeat against Go-Ahead Eagles in the group stage, and that saw Victor Lindelof playing it right back. And he does it again. That's 2 in quick succession. Nottingham Forest have committed suicide. Aston Villa are rampant. They've turned the screw. Come on, Unai, you must be smiling for that. And the flag continues to fly. 10 minutes to go. 3 goals to at least send it into extra time. Villa fans are in dreamland. This will be a second European final. And of course, they did go on to play in the Super Cup. And this time around, an exquisite finish into Ortega's near post. But the keeper definitely had no chance there. This is something I can definitely watch over and over again. Villa have been magnificent in Europe this season. And there was always this feeling that if they weren't able to qualify for the Champions League at the end of last season because of what happened at Old Trafford, there was always a big chance that they could win this Europa League, and that's exactly what they've done. And Emery and the fans are delighted, but that's it. Forest look shocked. They look defeated, demoralised. It's all over bar the shouting. Watkins with a goal and assist. It is all over. And he is a man possessed. So, Jose, what was it that you said earlier? It could be on. It could be on. Of course, I remember only too well in 2019 when Spurs reached the Champions League final and we reached the Europa League final. We could have had a North London Super Cup clash, but sadly, for certain reasons, it didn't materialise. And of course, in 2019, the Arsenal manager was none other than a certain Unai Emery. That night in Baku, a night of shame. Petr Cech, the best player on the field that night for Arsenal. That said it all. The players disgracefully down tools. Ozil, Lacazette, even Aubameyang. You have to sort of criticise him. It was a collective. But your prediction does look on. I think Villa will be expected to win. And now he makes another change, bringing on Jadon Sancho. Come on, give Harvey a few minutes, Unai. Harvey Elliott, of course, on loan from Liverpool, has hardly played at all this season. Been made to kick his heels in frustration on the bench. The boy's a baller, but maybe he just doesn't have the speed really required to make it, to really make it. But, on his day, he does have the skill. England under-21 captain as they won the Euros under Lee Carsley. And I think it's fair to say that, as much as I always say Begin again. Oi, oi. I think that's A, Martin, but whatever. Well, Forest will have a chance for some respite, but Jadon Sancho is about to come on, and who does he replace? Let it be Rodgers. I think he's run himself into the ground. Needs to be rested for, I think, when they play on Sunday, because, you know, you play in the Europa League on Thursday, you have to only play on Sunday. And who do they play on Sunday? None other than Burnley, who, of course, are already relegated. Well, that was a dangerous free kick there, but Rodgers, with a rescue act of a header, wide. Could very have nearly been a bizarre own goal, mind you, but it is a Forest corner. Neco Williams, the right-footed left-back, to take it. Emi Martinez wants his clean sheet tonight. He doesn't want to concede. The corner whipped in, long and far, hoping to find a header, but no dice. And I have to make sure that the computer does not go into standby mode. And no updates at the moment from the other three games. Freiburg are 3-1 ahead on the night, 4-3 on aggregate. Kubler, of course, making it 3-0 for Freiburg, but Pau Victor pulling back a goal. And there is still some time left, about 5 minutes or so. Actually, not too long for the Portuguese. And there is, of course, more than 5 minutes left at over at Birmingham. And Jadon Sancho's waiting to come on, but who is he replacing? And it is, of course, Luca who has the ball. And McGinn cleans up. And finally, Bohada hacks it wide. And can Villa make their substitution? No, not yet. This is ridiculous. Hutchison sending it into the penalty area, but Martinez says, enough of that nonsense. And it looks as though the Argentinian goalkeeper has hurt his back, or has he? He has been known to feign injury on occasions, but there is no way he will want to miss playing in a European club final. And it looks as though it will be Buendia to make way. What a game this little Argentinian has had. A gorgeous assist for Ollie Watkins as opener. Some great work, of course, from the corner that led to the penalty, which he took, fired straight past Ortega. And then, of course, Captain Fantastic John McGinn coming in with 2 goals to wrap the tie up very neatly. Emi's earned his rest. Not Martinez, Buendia, and Sancho comes on. And that means no Harvey Elliott. And so if you are not going to play Harvey Elliott, for heaven's sake, put Ross Barkley in the doubt. Again, it's not guaranteed. I think Palace will win the Conference League. Aston Villa are favourites to win whoever they play. But Arsenal against PSG, we'll see what happens. And 2 more English teams guaranteed going into European finals. Yep, and that will only do wonders once again for the coefficient. I'm not so animated as I am now because there is no way that Forest can come back from this. 3 goals in at least 4 minutes, no chance. Elliot Anderson. And that is Morato, who passes it to Milenko. Not Morato, I should say Ryan Yates, club captain. Dominguez. And that's a poor foul there. And it was actually Ryan Yates who was fouled, so I'm not too sure who that defender was. I apologise for my lack of professionalism. And Forest making a couple of substitutions now. Murillo coming on for Jair Cunha to just have a little kickabout more than anything else. And it looks as though Forest are sending on their number 61, Sinclair. A disappointing night, really, it has to be said, for Nottingham Forest. And at least now, though, they can focus attention on making sure they secure their place in the Premiership for another year. Maybe they're not quite ready for European football just yet. Jimmy Sinclair from Nottingham-born, a Nottingham youth player, and now he's on for the last few minutes, replacing Omari Hutchinson, who was sort of stifled tonight. And we're going to find out who Murillo has come on for. Yep, Jay Acuna, I already mentioned that. And so we're into the last 2 minutes of play. There will be some time for stoppages, but really you can't expect anything more from Forest. And Sinclair's first job is to win a throw off John McGinn, which he takes. Straight out to Dominguez, who's wearing his reverse number. And very nearly a header on target, but thank you very much indeed, Martin. As always, I love your support and love your enthusiasm for the channel. I might actually decide not to do any more watch-alongs for this channel anymore if I'm not going to get the traction that Hannah gets for his watch-alongs. And that will be an offside there against Luca. And, you know, as things stand, if Aston Villa do manage to win the Europa League and secure 5th position, then a 6th team will end up going into the Champions League. Hopefully that'll be Bournemouth. And 3 substitutions being made from the looks of it. Super John McGinn being replaced by Leon Bailey. I think that Jamaican fella has to go. He was at his best at Villa when he had Moussa Diaby competing with him. But those days are now gone. Tyrone Mings coming on. Will he get the captain's armband from McGinn, or will it go to Ezri Konsa? But McGinn, captain's performance. Rodgers with an assist for the 4th goal, and there's the iconic celebration. Harvey Elliott underused, but still happy to embrace his captain. So, and if, of course, we get the 6th Champions League spot, I think there might only be one place in the Europa League, because again, the FA Cup winners, if Chelsea manage to win the FA Cup, they could also go into the Europa League, and then there will be more to be decided. And we have ticked over into stoppage time. We'll find out how many are added, but Emi Martinez wants his clean sheet, and he deserves it, and I think he should get it. And 4 minutes, same as the first half. But Dominguez, to Ryan Yates, at least let him score a consolation European goal. Nope, a P-roller straight through to the Argentinian goalkeeper. So there has been talk about potentially 10 teams being in Europe the following season. 8th place, as it stands, could also go to a conference league, And sadly, the Forest fans are now starting to leave. And Pau Torres has been replaced by Douglas Luiz. Luiz coming on for a little kickabout for his current club against his former club. And he was, of course, at Forest, as I've mentioned earlier on this season, on loan from Juventus. He's now come back on loan from Juventus. And with many of these players having joined Aston Villa when Dean Smith was manager, or been there under Dean Smith, this could very well be their last chance to actually win something. You have to feel for the Forest fans. I think their European adventure has fallen flat, and they can at least be proud of a very good run to the semi-finals, beating some fine teams on the way. They, in 3 matches against FC Porto, who of course won the Portuguese Liga at the expense of Jose Mourinho's Benfica. Their record against Porto in Europe is played 3, won 2, and drawn 1. Although, to be fair, the only reason why Forest got that draw was due to a bizarre own goal, and that proved to be what cost Porto progress in this tie. Porto would have ended up playing against Aston Villa home and away at the Estadio do Dragão in Lisbon and over here at Villa Park. 2 minutes are about to tick over of the 4, and Forest are now searching for something desperate, but I think they've grown tired, they've grown demoralised, and, And Morgan Rodgers has also come off to be replaced by Tyrone Mings for 90 minutes, on 90 minutes. So basically Mings, Bailey and Luiz getting stoppage time fun. And that's the 5 substitutes that have been done. Of course, had there been a concussion substitution, they would have been able to make an extra one, but Watkins was deemed fit enough to stay on the field, and he certainly played his part tonight. And it's hard to think of who could be, Aston Villa's man of the match tonight. You've got to look at certain players who have, really done well. Buendia has been outstanding. Watkins was wonderful. And this could very well be an offside, but we have Tielemans running onto the ball, sadly slipping. And, well, actually, it might not be offside if Tielemans had started his run from his own half. But that would have been really nice. Tielemans on his birthday boy playing all 94 minutes. Would have loved to have crowned it with a goal. Bailey against Sinclair, and Bailey slips, leaving Sinclair a chance to maybe create something. Time for a Forest consolation. Ryan Yanks! Well, he wins a corner, and there are 30 seconds to go. And let me see. Well, we have moved deep into stoppage time in the game in Germany between Freiburg and Braga. And I can tell you right now that the tie is now over, and Freiburg have gone through to the final of the Europa League. They've beaten Sporting Braga 3-1 on the night, 4-3 on aggregate, and I will prepare those banners immediately. But sign of former Germany coach Kjörgi Löw there in the stands. I didn't see what happened there with the corner, I'm afraid, but I think it's pretty much inconsequential now. So I'm going to prepare these banners. And, yep, it is all over. It is all over. Full-time score from Villa Park. Aston Villa 4, Nottingham Forest 0, 4-1 on aggregate on the night. Oliver Watkins, Emiliano Buendia, and 2 goals from John McGinn, lending Gloucester proceedings, and a clean sheet for Emi Martinez, who made a wonderfully important save from Chris Wood late on when Villa were 2-0 up, and that made the difference between Villa being comfortable at 2-0 and possibly, having the tie pegged back to 2-1 on the night, 2-0 on aggregate. So, preparing the banners, of course. Please excuse me. I'll tell you what, all I can say is, Unai Emery, I take my hat to you. I was literally spitting blood, when you rested all of those players for that game against Tottenham, which could have helped you secure Champions League football and go above Liverpool into 4th. But this performance tonight against a Forest team that literally did not lend anything, and the scoreline proves it, I think it's fair to say that, I take my hat to you. And of course, I only hope that there won't be a repeat of what happened in 2019 when we did brilliantly well to make sure we made the Europa League Final in 2019, only to completely throw in the towel in Azerbaijan that day. Not having Henrik Mkhitaryan in the squad, the Armenian midfielder, was not helpful. But now we can see all of the Villa players celebrating in the middle. And you've also got to take your hat off to Emiliano Martinez. Much maligned after the summer, and especially after the last day's game against Manchester United at Old Trafford. But he stayed this season. Despite having the vice-captaincy taken away from him, he's been nothing short of a model professional, pulled off some brilliant saves. You can tell he loves playing in big competitions. And if he goes on to win, he won't be the first Argentinian goalkeeper to win the Europa League. Sergio Romero, Geronimo Rulli, and Juan Musso have done that for him. And I think Willy Caballero was on the bench when Chelsea beat us in Baku in 2019. But this will definitely be so satisfying. And to all of those bitter Arsenal fans who said that Emi would not do anything after leaving Arsenal, hold that expeditiously and eat your humble pie. Of course, I'm just going to prepare some other banners. To confirm what's going on. Course confirmation here that SC Freiburg were able to beat SC Braga tonight and 4-3 on aggregate. Of course, Braga were 2-1 up from the first leg, but suffered really from a very early dismissal for their left-sided midfielder Dorgeles on 6 minutes and conceded a 2-goal lead from Kubilay and Manzambi to go in 2-0 down at half-time. Kubilay making it 3-0 on the night. Paulo Victor on 79 minutes giving them some brief hope, but it just wasn't to be for the Portuguese. So we will have an Anglo-German Cup final. Always a classic. I never like Anglo-German clashes in international football. I always end up bricking it for certain reasons. With club football, I don't know if it'll be much different, but, we will basically see. And I will, of course, confirm the Conference League results. And of course, as I've said, I was going to provide you some updates. And I think it's fair to say, really, that Palace were always likely to go through. Yep, a 2-1 win tonight. The score is confirmed. And, full time at Selhurst Park. It finished 2-1 to Crystal Palace. And, of course, I will confirm the other Conference League finalist. So confirmation there, no European final for Gary O'Neill. All the sadder, really. But Rayo Vallecano go through. And that will obviously be a clash to savour, an Anglo-Spanish clash. And there's always going to be this talk about how, this new competition format and these new competitions have made it easier for English teams to do well. English teams normally do well in Europe because of the tempo with which they play. But, other teams are getting their level of exposure. And I think it's fair to say that, again, while it does look as though there is a bit of a hegemony taking place in European competition, other teams still have to make sure they do well enough. And in contrast to Arsenal, who are very much the underdogs for the Champions League final, I will definitely have Aston Villa to be favourites for the clash on the 20th of May, which will take place in Besiktas, because, they just seem to be the strongest team in the competition. They qualified from the league phase in second position. And, the performances they put in Europe this season under Unai have consistently been magnificent. And Freiburg, of course, they also did quite well against Celta Vigo, who had dispatched ruthlessly of Olympique Lyonnais. But, they've also shown that they can be got at. And Freiburg, of course, are not a club who have that much in terms of European history, in stark contrast to Aston Villa. So, we are obviously going to find out a little bit more of how their history is. But we will obviously get to that once we do a stream for that. And that may be one of the last few streams I do on the channel. But, and again, of course, with Crystal Palace, they just look really strong in Europe. And Oliver Glasner, of course, won the Europa League with Eintracht Frankfurt. And so this match is going to be taking place at the Red Bull Arena in Leipzig in Germany. Leipzig, of course, being the former club of the now Bournemouth manager, Marco Rose. But, Glasner's been there in Europe. He's done it. And obviously, once he leaves the season, he will leave arguably as Crystal Palace's greatest ever manager, having won their first 2 trophies. Now, I will say that it isn't guaranteed or set in stone that Palace will beat Rayo Vallecano, just as though it isn't guaranteed that Villa will beat Freiburg. And it definitely isn't likely that Arsenal will beat Paris Saint-Germain. But 3 English teams in all European finals, that can only do wonders for the European coefficient. And we'll end up getting a few more teams in Europe next season. We will have to see. It was always going to be Palace going through, as I've said, after that 3-1 win over in Krakow. And Vallecano just had too much for Gary O'Neill's Strasbourg. The story of the night, though, is, of course, full time from Villa Park. Aston Villa 4, Nottingham Forest 0. Villa turning it on, turning the style on at Villa Park, the way it was hoped they would and the way they went on to do. Nottingham Forest were just disappointing and really offered nothing. And you have to say that Villa were the worthy winners tonight. And their reward is that they will face their second ever European final on the 20th of May, competing for the Europa League. It will be Unai Emery's 6th European final, hoping to make it 5 Europa League wins. And they will play SC Freiburg on the 20th of May. And we will do a full analysis of them in the run-up to the final on that day. But for now, I want to say thank you all of you who joined in, everyone in the chat, Jose, Martin, and also Nems Talks was here. Nobody else. Hopefully, we'll get a lot more people for the Europa League final. I know that quite a few, there might be a few Arsenal fan channels who might be doing the Europa League final. It might be a hate watch, really, for Aston Villa because they don't like Unai Emery, or maybe they do. But, we'll just have to see how things, pan out. But we have now been on the air for 2 hours, coming up to 2 hours, 25 minutes. And I want to say once again, thank you to all of you for joining in. It hasn't really had the excitement of the Champions League ties. I will accept that. But, the Europa League does throw up some wonderful storylines. And this is no different. And I always enjoy European club football whenever I can. And of course, Super McGinn, the name on everyone's lips on the night, but Oliver Watkins, Emi Buendia, Victor Lindelof, Emiliano Martinez, Morgan Rogers, and many, many others. A lot of people playing some brilliant roles tonight. You can't think of an Aston Villa player who had a bad game tonight. That was as perfect a performance as you could hope for, and that is exactly what transpired. Final confirmation. Aston Villa 4, Nottingham Forest 0, and Aston Villa will go through to the 2026 Europa League final, and they will play SC Freiburg on the 20th of May. As always, it's been a privilege, it's been a pleasure. Thank you all, and I will see you again soon. Take care of yourselves, be safe and be happy. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do, and as always, do unto others as you would have people do unto you. Take care, God bless. See you all soon.